Are you under the impression that being strong and independent means you can't have strong and intimate relationships? We have some great news for you.
Ah! Oh! Oh!
What's the great news?
Well, the great news is that you can have everything that you would like in your life. You can be strong, independent, take care of yourself, and you can also have the kind of relationships and the lifestyle and the connections with other people that bring a lot of fulfillment to your life. I know this because I'm doing it.
Seems like a good idea.
Yes. So we have tips and very specific ways that you can have that. Hopefully that will add something to your life.
By the end of this video, you should have learned something.
Yes.
Before we get into all this stuff, if you are a single Gen X man, we just released a course called Dominate the Dating Apps.
Yes.
This is not a pickup artist tutorial. This is a walkthrough to figure out who you are, what you want, and how to get it. The link's below. The first part's free, and we think you'll love it. All right, let's get into this chat conversation.
Let's get into this
We're doing.
because independence is something that a lot of people work really hard in their life to achieve. And I mean, I've spent a lot of my life, even while I was married in my past life, trying to find where is my own independence, where is who I am, where do I exist, and where does everything else exist?
I think that it's interesting too because Gen X has a lot of independence because we had to learn to be self-reliant. We had to
Yeah.
take care of ourselves in a lot of ways. And it's different for everybody, of course. But as a general generational thing, we pride ourselves on being strong and independent, men and women both.
Yes.
This is something that we do. So if you're dating, when you're in this age group and you're dating independent women and you're an independent man, how do you merge that? How do you make that work?
Well, the first thing that I know that was important to me that helped me a lot was when I understood what boundaries were. That was really the beginning of it because every one of us, like this is our philosophy in life. Take it or leave it. Our philosophy in life is that everyone has a right to be here and to be a sovereign person, to have their own voice, to have their own way of doing things. They have rights to ask questions and ask for help. There's different learning styles. Every one of us is a unique individual. Then the world is not a better place by subduing that. It's better when we understand it and let it express itself. But the best way to do that, not only so other people know how to deal with, well, so they knew how to deal with me, was also so I knew how to deal with where I was uncomfortable, was to set boundaries. How would you describe boundaries in your life?
I didn't know what they were until I was in my mid-30s, and I learned them from a horse work, which was very interesting
It's a great
because
story.
the weekend was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the first thing we did was an exercise where we just observed the horses. There's about a dozen horses there in different areas, and I love horses my whole life, so I was like super excited about this. But I walked up, there was a pen, so there's a fence, and there was this big horse in there, and I walked up about a foot and a half from the fence, and this horse walked over with great purpose quickly and lunged at me like he was going to bite me. And I was like, whoa. And then I heard in my head, I have no boundaries. I started laughing. I'm like, I guess I know what my work is this weekend. So by the end of my entire work that weekend was around what are boundaries, what are mine, what's okay, what's not okay, what does this even mean? By the end of the weekend, I danced with that horse. I pushed and pulled and talked and communicated and moved around with him. It was absolutely magical because I learned what my boundaries were and I was able to express that to him. So when I walked into the round pen on the last day and he came walking up to me with purpose and I stood my ground and I looked at him and he came like right here and stopped and went, and I went, and then he lowered his head. So there was an energetic play there where I had a strong enough boundary that he was not going to trample
that.
me.
So for
This is relevant with people. Part of that workshop, and I want to throw this in there too because this is cool. We did the same exercise with other people in the group. So I had a partner. This was all women. I had a partner that was standing apart from me, and she would walk towards me, and she would stop when she felt like she needed to. We were playing with that energetic boundary. And by the time she got within arm's reach. And she said, Can I touch your shoulder? And I said, Yes. And she reached out and she put her hand on my shoulder. And she said, Would you like a hug? And I said, No. And that was it. Like, that was my boundary. It was really,
So in your life, the boundaries that you can consider making sure are really solid are what's your yes and what's your no? Time, money, resources. Where are your boundaries around those things? If somebody asks you, can you come help me? Do you feel obligated to just say yes, regardless of what you need? Because if you don't have an established boundary, you don't even know where you begin and where you end. So no one else can do that. Where in your life do you want to say yes and no to? That's a really big, important place to start your boundaries.
yeah, this is built into the course we mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah.
Who are you helps you understand exactly that, who you are, what's important to you. What do you want helps you understand your boundaries, your yes and no, what's okay with other people. And then how do you get it helps you understand how to interact. So this connection of independent people means, well, this is where I stand on that. Where do you stand on that? And
Yeah.
then he tells me where he stands on that. And then we see like a Venn diagram. Where do our bubbles overlap here? So we have to understand that we both have a right to be strong and independent in a lot of different ways. But we find that common ground. We find that overlap. We find the conversation and communication and language that we can be individually who we are and have that overlap.
And contrary to society, boundaries are not selfish. You aren't being self-absorbed by protecting yourself with things that you want or don't want in your life. You can be vulnerable when you know how you're feeling.
This develops more connection and communication and intimacy when you know yourself and you feel safe to express this is what I like and this is what I don't like and ask those questions too. How does this feel for you? What does this bring up for you? All of this is about being okay in yourself and knowing that nobody else's journey is your responsibility. Nobody else's choices are your responsibility. So I don't have to love and approve of everything that he is about. All I have to do is respect and appreciate all that he's about.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing is letting everybody be who they are without trying to change them or tell them that it's wrong
Yes.
or make them a different way. Let them be who they are. And the more you encourage and appreciate, the more they will come out and be more and more authentic in who they are.
Because if you understand the dynamic that's being built, your independence isn't about separating yourself and protecting yourself. It's about understanding who you are, what you want, what you need, and being able to set up some sort of rules for you to live within the world within. And then as you do that, you'll start to understand there's certain people in your life that just don't fit. If you set up a boundary and it immediately sets someone else off, that should give you an idea of where they belong in your life. This includes family. This includes your current relationships. If things in your life are not vibrating in a good way and they're causing discord within you, that's a good sign that you should be really thinking about their value.
Well, there's sometimes that is something you may have been avoiding that you need to address with that person and work through and clear it up and you can move forward. And sometimes you have to agree to disagree and disconnect and go about your own life and allow the people that show up to celebrate you. We like to be around people
Yes.
that agree with us because that feels good. Duh. We know that. So we're not going to go hang out with people that disagree with us because it doesn't feel good. That's a different conversation. Some people really thrive on that. But if you want to create a world where the people in your life are around in a way that feels good to you, you show up and be that way so you can attract that. Did that
And
make sense?
yeah.
I think that makes sense.
And then finally, we can say this. Don't mistake independence for defensiveness. Being independent doesn't mean you're being defensive against the world. It means, as we just keep saying, you know yourself really well. And maybe a lot of you, when you start to understand where your boundaries should be, are rediscovering hobbies, things that you like to do. And when you do that, you give yourself an opportunity to really express yourself.
I think what I'm hearing you say as well is just because someone else has decided that this is how I am, and you say, well, what about this? And they say, I'm not interested in that. It's not personal attack. It's just their decisiveness. And sometimes when people are that strong in their decisiveness, it can feel off putting like, well, then how do I participate with you? Well, that's not the person to participate with. Gen X is kind of in the king stage of life at this point. We have gone through a lot. We've really established who we are. We've really built our foundation, our kingdom, and our world, and we know how we like things. We're not going to change that much. Of course, we always change forever and ever because we're human and we're
Yeah,
alive. But
we're always changing.
foundationally and at our core, we are going to really be the same in a lot of ways until we're done with this lifetime. So that independent nature is really something to appreciate.
So in a way to sort of summarize this, when you are celebrating your independence, that is again not being defensive or trying to separate yourself, it's setting up your boundaries, knowing what your yes and your no is, because when you're in that space, your confidence grows. Your sense of real expression begins to come out. You also become trustworthy because people will know you're not wishy-washy. They'll know that when you say yes or no, you mean it. And they have evidence and an experience with you seeing that that's true. And when you're in a space where you are comfortable, you start radiating a whole different sort of frequency and you start to attract the kind of people that will respect that. So independence and intimacy are absolutely two gigantic Lego pieces that belong together.
They certainly, as weird as that may sound, these conversations that we have are always about more understanding, more communication,
Yes.
more diving into what these concepts mean. This is what we're talking about. If you like this kind of stuff, follow us, like, subscribe, and be part of our world. We have a new school community that we to share with you. There's all the links are in the description.
Yep.
And we would love to see you and get you in on this conversation. What do you think? Like, how does this land on you? What does it mean? Do you feel like you're independent? Do you feel like you have your own ability to show up in your life the way that's real for you? And again, if you're looking for a course to figure out who you are, what you want, and how to get what you want, we've got that for you.
Ah! Oh! Oh!